Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. My name's Connor Williams, joined by Callum Brannan, and this is the monthly review for October, the month that's just been. First of all, we start off on the 5th of October. It's obviously a bit of a smaller month. We've only played 3 games, so it should hopefully be a smaller monthly review. 5th of October, Everton-Newcastle, finished 0-0. Give me your thoughts on this one, because I think we spoke, didn't we, on the last one coming into this game. I don't know if we said we'd take a draw or a win, because we've got an all right record against them. Give us your thoughts, because obviously there was, the goal offside by Decore. Anthony Gordon missing a penalty was a personal highlight, I think, for most fans, especially, with it being saved. So, yeah, give us your thoughts on it, Cal.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games where, it's weird because we've had, two draws at the start of the end of the month, and I feel like they're both a little bit on the opposite end of the scale to each other. So I feel like this is one where, I come out of it and I think that was a really good performance, really resolute against the Newcastle side that, I don't know if they had been in the middle of their little run of not scoring, or it had only just started, so it wasn't really as prevalent as it has become more recently. Of course, I think they stopped that against Chelsea. But, this was a Newcastle side that was still very good, and I think it showed by the performances. I think you saw ironically for Newcastle, unfortunately for them, the only players that didn't perform on that day were the front three. The rest of the team, I think, were fantastic for them. I think they did really well. But I think for us as well, I think it was the same for us. I think it was a very resolute defensive performance. I think this was probably the start of the turning in a good way on Keane and Young, because I think you've noticed that this month a lot of the fan perception of not them as players but their performances this season has switched. I think you're seeing a lot more of the we'll get towards it at the end of the month. You're seeing a lot more of the abuse in a sense go to Tarkowski. Of course, gave away the arguably one of the stupidest penalties I've ever seen in this game by just deciding he wanted to suplex Tonali for just no reason whatsoever. And I think it was one of those where it really felt like if Gordon scored, it was done. They were going to put 4 past us, because we were, besides that, like you mentioned, that goal from Decore, it felt like we had nothing to offer. I think this was arguably Calvert-Lewin's worst game of the season. And again, I mentioned it on the extra time things. I don't want to say, we'll probably have to talk about him, but it was just at the start of what's been a dreadful month for him. And I think it's one of those where it felt like we had nothing going. I think Ndai was really good. I think Ndai was probably our standout player besides Pickford, actually. But it felt like, if anything, we were going to have to rely on Ndai to pull something out of his arse to get something out of it. But yeah, I think it was Pickford's save, and I think it was more a reminder of where we were after the points deduction last season. Really strong defensively, able to win battles, win duels, and I think it was more reminiscent of that compared to what we've been at the start of this season, which was leaking goals and scoring quite effectively as well. This was more Everton of last season, of struggling to score the goals, and then but while also being really strong defensively.
Yeah. I think this is the last 2 we've done. Like you said, we've been leaking goals, and I think we've both said, we just don't get it. Normally, it's not what you expect from Sean Dyche side, but it's not what you expect from Everton. The last 2 seasons, I think we finished last year second most clean sheets, was it? Something like that.
And like the 4th best defensive record or something like that.
Yeah, we were really up there. So it was a bit like, and obviously people were like, we're just missing Branthwaite. That's what I think people were hindering it on, was we're just missing Branthwaite. But like you said, this game, you started to see more of I want to say the usual suspects for messing up stepped up, and we will go into them more through the month. But it was nice to see Jordan Pickford have a good game as well, because not that he doesn't have a good game, but Newcastle is the one team that I really worry with him, just because, bar the Origi thing, there have been a couple of Newcastle games where his head's gone, because he's a Sunderland fan, he's a Sunderland lad. The Newcastle fans absolutely give him abuse year on year, fixture on fixture, which is ironic that they did that. But, this game caused a massive kickoff because the club decided to put a sound effect on a video, and then it was like people going mental, and Newcastle fans going on, and like, not that it's not important, but they were going on about like how you shouldn't lash the players while constantly coming dressed as dinosaurs to this fixture.
You'd think from how they were describing it as well, and it was to be fair, it was very few Newcastle fans, and unfortunately, their tweets went viral because I saw them, and a lot of the comments were actually Newcastle fans telling the other fan to grow up, and that is part of the game. I think it's just I understand, and I think we had to touch on this talking about this game, the importance of footballers' mental health.
Yeah.
But like also then going on Twitter and making out like our fans were trying to jump Anthony Gordon and batter him because a bunch of 13-year-olds ran up to his car window, and it's not right. And yeah, there were some fans who were adults, but let's not. It was wrong, and to be fair, if I were Anthony Gordon, didn't support Everton, didn't think I'd have probably done the same thing after that. I'd have probably been like, I'm gone. My head would have checked out too. So I'm not going to slag him off there. But it's other fans of other clubs trying to change the narrative of what the situation was when it was Anthony Gordon refusing to train, Anthony Gordon refusing to travel to games because he was desperate for his move to what was Chelsea at the time. Let's not pretend that he's a saint, and let's not start to act like he wasn't a massive diva about the whole situation. And then when he got his penalty, didn't have a big smirk on his face, and you could tell what he were about to do if he scored. Yeah, and I would have blamed him because again, would have done the same thing if I was Anthony Gordon. If I'd have scored that goal, I'd have probably been running straight up to the Gladys Street end and doing an Adebayor if I was him, and he feels that strongly about it. But it's both sides of the same coin, is it? And if you're going to be a shithouse, you've got to expect abuse. It's why the one thing I can credit Neil Maupay for is he leans into it and he understands that he's going to get abused for it. Unfortunately, some of it's wrong, some of it's too far, always is going to be. But it's unfortunately part of the game. And if you're going to play a shithouse character against your old club who gave you your chance in football, that's going to happen, mate.
Yeah, I just quickly on the point of the fans as well, because I did see people saying that the fans who surrounded his car and Yerry Mina's at the time were called out as well by us Everton fans. Like, people at the time were calling it out. Same with the fans down in London shouting abuse at the players not long ago. They were rightfully called out for their behaviour by fellow fans. So like, but it's just the irony of like, a little sound, a buzzer noise has caused all this. And like you said, footballers' health mental health is definitely important. But like, if you're gonna start claiming that you can't be coming to Goodison Park dressed as a dinosaur and giving Pickford abuse for the last 3 years, really severe as well. Because some of the stuff they say is trivial, like he's got small arms, but some of it gets quite personal. And it's like, you can't throw stones in glass houses.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's not. I don't want to sit and make this a tirade against Newcastle fans because at the end of the day, it's not their fault. They've got a few idiots, just as the same with us.
Oh yeah, it's
unfortunately, and I feel like unfortunately for us, is the idiots in our fan base and the idiots at their fan base are constantly putting heads. So this happens every time we play. It's for some reason it's a rivalry now when it's not. Like, I'm going to be brutally honest, I couldn't care less about Newcastle like doing badly, or I have like no ill. There's probably a lot of Everton fans. Like, I have no ill will to Gordon. I wanted him to miss the penalty, but like, I don't care enough to like give him dogs abuse and stuff like that. At the end of the day, he's moved club. We got loads of money for him, and to be honest, we were probably better off without him for a long period of time until that development started. Because again, let's not forget this development has only been over like the last 12 to 18 months. At first at Newcastle, let's not forget how terrible he was at first as well. It's just one of those things where young player leaves the club, we get money, move on. That simple. The buzzer was very funny, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if even Anthony Gordon saw the light-hearted side of it.
Yeah, it's a bit soft, all the kick-off over a buzzer noise. It's incredibly soft. But like you said, it's a small section. My advice would be stay off Twitter. My advice would be stay off Twitter. It's always on there that you see it. So just stay off there because, honestly, not football, everything. You cannot have one subject on Twitter where you won't find two people, completely extreme polar opposites, battling it out on it. No matter what.
The Twitter spaces.
Yeah, like, Doesn't matter if it's football, any other sport, or just what
Just
colours.
everything.
Yeah, you'll get people
You'll
going.
say like your favorite colour's blue, and then it'll be World War III, and you're like,
Yeah, it's the pits at the minute. But moving on, we get a win, the only win of this month. A win that I was really, really hoping for. I really didn't want um, the head turn, the sort of panic that this would cause if we'd lost this game or drew it. Just because as good as Ipswich were on their way up, I've not seen anything from. I've seen a couple of good results, but I've not seen enough to suggest that I think they will be staying up. I think they'll be going back
no,
down.
no.
And it just made it. This was the one fixture. I was like, if we lose this, heads will quite rightly start to roll because panic will set in on a massive, massive amount. But luckily for us, it was a pretty good day at the office. 2-0 win.
Yeah,
Used to see Michael Keane get on the score sheet with a great finish. And in Jai as well, I thought he had a nice little run and a nice finish as well. Yeah, it was. I don't think. I think if I'd say one player I think had a slightly off day, it would have been probably Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who we just said is probably on an off month, which we'll probably get into it towards the end.
yeah,
But
I don't
he's the only player that had an off day.
yeah. I'd say, yeah, I think a lot of it was really good. I think again, no offense to Ipswich fans when I say this, because Ipswich is a club I'd like to see in the Premier League. Not they just feel like they should be here. It's one of those clubs where weirdly they just it fits right. It's like a club like Blackburn who haven't been here for so long, and then you just like, but it just feels right. But yeah, if I'm going to be brutally honest, the worst team I can remember seeing Everton play in the Premier League, the worst, bottom. It until the last 25 minutes, but until then, besides like the little run from Jack Clark, it just felt like they had nothing. I cannot remember the last time I've sat and watched an Everton game in this, like, I'm going to call it like relegation era, where we've been in and around this area where I've just gone, yeah, we're not losing this game. It changed a bit in the last 25 minutes when it felt like they put their foot down and a few changes were made. Ironically, as soon as they shipped off Calvin Phillips and that Burns lad, it felt like because that Burns lad, that was one of the worst performances of the season from any player. He was absolutely horrendous. I don't know how he's playing in this league with performances like that. I genuinely think if he was like an Everton player and that were for us, someone's head would have exploded. Like,
Yeah,
it was.
poor
But
game.
yeah, I think it's one of those, unfortunately, for Ipswich where they weren't able to really get their foot down until that last 20 minutes. And then when they did get it down, it was too late, and Everton were ready to shut up shop defensively. I think, again, another really good defensive performance. It says something where, again, I'm not going to take football account ratings into account here because it's saying Calvert-Lewin got a 7.2, but Pickford was our best player, and we won 2-0. So according to them, so it's one of those things where it was an interesting one, and I feel like it was very comfortable and it looked very promising for the next game. Unfortunately, it was that last 25 minutes, and unfortunately, it was probably that last 25 minutes that carried into the next game.
Yeah, it was like you said that it was nice to see, and we're probably gonna have to mention them because it keeps coming up when I'm looking as well. But off the top of my head, two players again that are also standout were Keenan, but also Ashley Young deserves a shout out because he didn't get a goal, but he was solid. He was solid at right back once again.
Yeah, he's been really good these past few games. He got the assist against Fulham. He got one for McNeil in the Crystal Palace game. He's been chipping in with a few assists. He's looked a lot more solid defensively. I do think that's because the quality of winger he's been against hasn't been as good. Like I mentioned it on the extra time review, when Reece Nelson came up on against Fulham, Ashley Young saved his game with that assist because he was getting cooked by Reece Nelson. Honestly, it felt like Reece Nelson could have breathed on the ball and Ashley Young would have fallen over. It was just one of those where the poor lad was. I know he's almost 40, but he might as well have been on all fours trying to defend Reece Nelson at that point because it wasn't looking good for him. But yeah, again, I can give credit to Ashley Young because again, I've said this multiple times. I think he's one of the worst players who've played for this club in a long time, and that I think we shouldn't be having 40-year-olds. And again, I have given him the credit that he is very old. It's understandable, but he's one of those players who, it's kind of the opposite of what we saw with Anthony Gordon, someone who gets a load of criticism, takes it on the chin, and then improves performance again, which is because I think a lot of people in content creation in general, in like the sphere, I won't say the sphere we're in, but like who make YouTube videos, is I think a lot of fans don't realise that is a lot of us on fan channels want to be wrong about calling players crap. I want Ashley Young to make me look like an idiot and go and put in a 10 out of 10 performance happily.
Yeah,
and I
you
think
know what wants us to be bad on
it's
purpose.
nice to see a player who can understand that a lot of these things about his performance aren't personal. It's not a thing of him as a person, and then he takes it on the chin, goes into the next game, and has strung together a few really good performances now. With the Fulham one, I think, besides the little Reece Nelson incident when he first came on, again, I do think a solid game. I did say the assist saved him because I do think a lot of fans were it was going to be the mention of that if that was the last memory of the game of him just getting torched by Nelson. But yeah, I think, again, it's nice to see Keane and Young, two players who've, Keane especially, been the butt of the joke for years now, putting really good performances and look really solid defensively, to the point now where there genuinely may be an argument that it's James Tarkowski who gets dropped for Brentford and not Michael Keane.
Yeah, it is, like you say, it's nice, and it does give that, because that has been discussed. Brentford is supposedly due back soon, possibly this weekend, being the Southampton game. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'd argue Tarkowski's actually been overall since the start of the season the one that I'm like a little bit more disappointed in.
I'm not going to lie, besides Calvert-Lewin, and again, I really like Calvert-Lewin, I don't like doing this, probably our worst player. Like, horrendously bad at times. Because, like, he's been solid a majority of the time. But, like, for example, some people will bring up Mikolenko. Yeah, with the ball at his feet, he's been terrible. But again, defensively, he's been doing his job, even against Fulham. Again, I can't remember a single incident against Fulham where Mikolenko got ran past. He just did that stupid pass across the box. Defensively, again, but it's Mikolenko. He'll defend well and then do the stupidest pass after. He'll run back from the wing, get all the way back, tackle the winger, and then give it back to him with a silly back pass. But yeah, I think with Tarkowski, because I think when a lot of things, when I say like our worst player, I think a lot of people have to understand that expectations are a part of that. Like, I know Mikolenko's not a very good fullback. It's why I'd actually say Ashley Young's been one of our best players, because the expectation was on the floor, and he's massively overperformed that expectation. I think
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is when you look at these players. It's why, for example, you see with players like Messi, they'll score 3 goals for Barcelona a couple of years back, and people would just be like, yeah, it's what Messi does. Or Haaland, he's got another hat trick. Yeah, cool. It's expectations dictate the path of what you think of a player, and of course, but it's like this thing where you just look at it and go, at this point, one of them's performing, one of them isn't. Tarkowski's clearly just the better defender. Clearly, it doesn't matter that he's having a bad stretch, but Keane's playing better. Do you want to unsettle that? Do you go with a partnership that you know works? It's an interesting situation for Sean Dyche. I do think he's just going to stick Tarkowski Brownthwaite, because again, I don't think you can just say, well, Michael Keane's been good. Sorry, Jared, you've been linked with £80 million transfers, but we've got Michael Keane now. I hope he doesn't do that, because I really do think there's a world where he might do that, actually.
yeah. I mean, I feel like it'd be tough to, like, in the same way it's going to be tough because he's going to then have to say to Michael Keane, "Oh, you played really, really well, but I'm dropping you anyway." And like you said, Tarkowski, by the way, I'm like, he's not been rubbish. Like, he hasn't been on the floor. He's just been a bit disappointing for the standard he sets, which is what you said. He set the standard so high. Moving on over to the final game, and then we've got a couple of other points to talk about, but it is the Everton Fulham game. This one, I can get the fallout from it. I do think though there were a couple of. I think we're unlucky to walk away with the draw, which is why I think it's upset people.
I think looking back at it, the offside was very, very about it. There was Because
the
it
penalty
did look
shout
like it
as
came off a
well.
Fulham player before it came off us, and then it just looked a bit like, can you really call that offside? You know, it's one of those. But I think the Fulham one is a lot more. You can point out individuals than you can point out overall team performance. I think the team performance, a lot of it was quite solid. I think it was flat and it was a poor performance. I think a lot of the poor performance comes from the manager and not noticing when it was time to change the pace of the game, when we had a chance to change the pace of the game, and he just let Fulham take complete control of the game. I think it's a lot more on the manager for not taking specific players off. Jack Harrison, Calvert-Lewin are the main two again, that I can think of. Who would that? But Harrison especially was awful as well. I think it's one of those where it's the big problem with a manager, and I think it's why the sacking wants are going to persist, because it just feels like he's too scared to make a change that could impact us negatively, even though there's a much greater chance of it impacting us positively. And I think the main topic of discussion on this game is going to be, and probably leading into next game, should be the striker. And I think it is going to, because I think it's now, because Shirley Broyer's almost back now. I don't know how far Chimity off is, and then, but we'll get to that when we talk about it. But I think it's one of those where I think Dyche needed to make a change early into that second half and just didn't, and just shrugged his shoulders, and again got very lucky that the cross, the overhit cross, fell to Ashley Young, who put it on Beto's head.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is though that I do think this game, by the way, was both teams really, really, especially in that first half, both teams really struggled to finish. But we came close, you know. Guay's hitting the bar with his usual, you know, it's them at least once a game shot.
I don't know how he's learned how to shoot.
Yeah, the offside. I think our penalty shout in the first half was a lot more. Had a lot more substance behind it than theirs did early on. Theirs would
Yeah,
have been quite soft. Calvert-Lewin shifts his body and the ball, and Bassey's just blocked him off. I think
yeah,
that's
he
all of
smashes
it.
into him.
Yeah,
It's one of those where I get why the defender's doing it, but the defender has no intention of getting the ball there.
yeah, no, I like it. There's no way you win the ball there. You're just
No.
blocking. You're just body blocking him.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those where, like you said, I think the bad individual performances make it look worse than it was, and I think that applies to me as well. I think I sit and go, "What an awful performance!" But it was a few poor individual performances that are clouding me and making me think that. But it's like, I think we're at a point with certain players now where a discussion has to be had about them, and especially where, like I said, I like Calvert-Lewin, but unfortunately right now he's the easiest example to point out, which is why I keep mentioning him. You know, yeah, I've done this plenty of other times on the channel before, where there's been other players who have needed to do better, and they were the easy example to point out. But it's like, there's only so much you can accept with a striker who's based on hold up when it looks like they want to play attacking midfield at some points, because I have no problem with him coming in deep to get the ball and facilitating it out. I actually don't mind that. But it's when he's in the box, and I can think of a specific one, and I mentioned this on the extra time thing as well, and you may be able to remember who plays the ball. The ball's played into him on the left side. He's at the near post of the goalkeeper. You actually watch Leno shift to cover the far post in case he passes it, but instead he turns around. He doesn't try to pass it in first time. He doesn't just smash it at the near post, which, again, if you just smash it at the near post, even if the keeper saves it, don't care. You've tried. You'd have got a shot on target, probably. And by the way, it looked like the way Leno was shifting, to be honest, probably scores that, because it looked like Leno was trying to cover the pass, because even he knew Calvert-Lewin just didn't have the confidence to shoot. And I get it's a confidence thing with Dom, but you're never going to regain that confidence if you're just not willing to shoot.
yeah, yeah. I get. We will go on the striker wing, but only briefly, because I've just done a video, so I know there is a
Yeah.
video coming out on the channel about the striker situation. So I don't want to give everything I've just said on the video here. But I will say this: it was like, listen, Fulham. I don't know why. You know, Fulham. I hate when we play Fulham, because their squad on paper is actually quite nice, and they have a manager that is. Last year, I don't think they did as well, but the year before, people were going, "Why do we sack him?" And we've got a nice goal scorer. And by the way, man of the match, well deserved, was a player that apparently was rubbish, shouldn't have ever played for Everton, not a chance creator in our squad, won't be missed. Who did run most of the game for
Yeah,
them.
I doesn't talk. I
It
doesn't talk.
was
And that finish was unbelievable as well. I know
yeah,
he's got. Do you know what? Let me have a look. I think he's got a few this season. I
it,
think he's
it,
got a few. He has, yeah, 2 goals and an assist this season. And it's a shocker where you look at it and you go, ironically, the manager who signed him for Everton, and it was a lot. I can remember a lot of the time when we sacked Silver. It was a long time ago, but he got a lot of the blame. He's brought in his guy and he just can't perform. 30 million for what? He's useless. Can barely kick a ball. We've signed him off 1 goal in the Europa League final, and suddenly the manager gets his man. Man's got confidence after a good, I'd say, 2 seasons for us, season and a half, where
yeah,
he really started to improve after finding a better role for himself, and all of a sudden he runs the game against us. I do think it was a nice touch that he didn't celebrate as well. Again,
yeah.
it was a very classy touch from him. But again, I think it's a thing where it just shows like just because it shows how much of a suspect this club has been in recent years, with how many players are leaving and going on to do well. Fulham's left back, who's very good, who played for our academy, when we're now having very noticeable left back issues. But again, that's one where I don't really get the complaints of that one as much, because we had Baines, we had Digne at the time, who was getting 10, 11 assists in the league or something like that. He was
He
never
was
going
meant
to.
to go to Milan as well for a good deal. It was he's got a heart problem or I can't remember what it's called, an irregular arithmetic or an irregular heartbeat showed up. Otherwise, he'd have gone for like I think it was 10+ mil, which at the time for a lad who's not played for Everton first team very much was a good deal. So like at the time, that's just Everton being unlucky that he didn't get that move, and him being and just unlucky for him as well, obviously, because AC Milan would have been a great club to go to.
Well,
But
even now, I think he's turned into one of the better left backs in the league at Fulham. So good on him.
yeah, I think their medical's just incredibly strict, which is I'm not going to knock that either. A strict medical is not it's probably the best practice when it's people's lives, but that is just unlucky. But I'm not going to Anthony Robinson. I'm not going to go. He's like a let down by the club or the letting go because at the time it was an incredibly good deal to not accept. But yeah, it was just the irony that, but it was always ever going to be one player, wasn't it? When I
You,
saw it, I was like, it's going to be just one player.
yeah. When Smith Rowe danced past us and he got the ball. I just saw him open his body up. I was like, oh no! I didn't expect the finish to be as good as it was. It was an
Nice finish. Yeah,
unbelievable finish. But it's just as soon as he opened his body up a little bit, I just knew what was coming. When you have that bad feeling in the pit of your stomach. Same feeling from the Gordon penalty, ironically. He opened his body up and I was like, oh no. And it just, boom, fired in. Again, really classy touch to not celebrate. But
yeah,
then we get on to the end of the game. We're all losing hope. The dads on Twitter, the die shout tweets are firing. And then the greatest footballer of all time, Cristiano Ronaldo, has posters of him on his wall. Big Beto rises like a salmon, headers it away. He's in tears. I'm in tears. The stadium erupts.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, I can't get too much because I've just done one on this, and I don't want to, repeat myself. But I will say this: he is incredibly infuriating to watch, and I don't. Sometimes I watch him thinking I don't think he knows what he's going to do, and I think sometimes that goes in his favor, sometimes it doesn't. But I also think that he's got his uses and he's an incredibly, I bet he's quite a pain to defend against because of the unpredictableness. But also, this was a goal that I can't believe we don't try to get more goals like this out of him because he's a lot bigger than Calvert Lewin in height. And I'd argue in frame, he's a bit bulkier. I don't know
Goes
why.
for it more as well. I feel
Yeah,
like he's like what Calvert Lewin was under Ancelotti, where he will just launch himself at the ball. He'll just throw himself at it. Which again, I feel like someone in thingy compared him to Nias. It might have been you, and it's bang on. It's bang on because he'll just throw himself at the ball, and it'll get him goals because no other striker or the defenders will even look at it and go, I've got this easy." And then you just see some big 6'4" Portuguese bloke, the legs flying in the air because he's not jumped properly, just absolutely launching himself. But I think he's one of those where I can't help but love the guy.
Well.
He is crap, but I just love him. He's in that same thing as Nias. It was really nice. Again, it was ace to see him, get his moment and be really emotional about it. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want from the players. It clearly showed that it meant a lot to him, and fingers crossed. Because my thing is with Beto, he's so frustrating because there is signs of someone who could absolutely terrorize defenses. He's quick, physically imposing, and can finish at times. Weirdly,
he loves to shoot as well. He's not one who's gonna. If anything, it's more of a negative, but he won't hold on to the ball. He will snatch at shots.
Yeah, which I think is like. I feel like the way we play now, ironically, he suits it more than Calvert-Lewin.
You need someone who's going to take the limited chances.
Because I don't think we need Calvert-Lewin to come deep and be this facilitator like he had to be last season. When we've got Ndai, who just seems to dance past people for fun, and McNeil's turned into one of the best creators in the Premier League all of a sudden.
Yeah, now that we've got players that can actually run from deep, I don't think we need it as much. Like you said, we've got people who can come in from the wings. Dwight McNeil centrally can pick the ball up and run. So there is less of it. But I mean, I think the first half, they did a stat. It was like fewest touches in the first half, and Calvert-Lewin had 18. He was the fewest. So we're not, and I think it's the same with Beto. I don't think Beto had a ton of touches when he came on. I don't think we're getting the ball to the striker as much as we should be, which adds to and when we do, we need to be taking, but we need, I looked before, Calvert-Lewin's XG is like 3.64. He scored 2 goals, but his shots are like quite a lot, like 12, I think it is this season so far on target.
Yeah, I think it's
12 shots on target, 3x, just under 3.5, just over. That suggests to me that his shot quality isn't very good. The shots he's taking on high XG, otherwise it'd be a lot higher than that from there.
Yeah. I think it's just what makes him so frustrating, though, isn't it? Where, like the one I mentioned earlier, where someone may be able to correct me and he may have not been able to shoot near post. But again, I'm just trying to remember something from like 5 days ago now and trying to piece it together. But it's like, if you're a striker, and I don't know if this is like my definition and your definition of probably a striker as well, they score goals. Like my definition of a striker is not like a Harry Kane now at Bayern. I always think of someone like a Haaland or someone who his job is to get in front of the goal and kick the ball into it, which is massively oversimplified. And I will give Calvert-Lewin his credit. I don't think we get the ball to the striker enough, but I also think part of that is his fault. Like, why are we going to give it to Calvert-Lewin in the final third when we've got 2 players in and Ndai McNeil who can actually have that moment of magic when you're sat at the edge of the box as Calvert-Lewin when you could just get into the box. And I understand he doesn't have the jumping reach anymore because of his injuries, and he does deserve some credit for that. And the one thing I will give Calvert-Lewin compared to a Beto is I'm much more confident in Calvert-Lewin finding a goal-scoring streak than Beto. I am much more confident in Calvert-Lewin getting one and then scoring the next game, and stringing a few together than I am Beto. But I think my thing is with Beto is I think if you need someone to just throw themselves, I think Beto's much better when you're playing a team who's better. So, for example, I've got the fixture list here against Southampton, West Ham, and Brentford. I'd probably prefer Calvert-Lewin. I feel like, especially, even ironically, though, Southampton are going to have 95% of the ball and probably still lose 3-0 to us. But I think it's one of those where I can understand there. But against a team like Man United, who I'm going to give Amarin the credit and think he's going to be able to turn it around, I can understand the thing of Beto there. Just someone who's just going to run in behind and not stop. With Calvert-Lewin, again, it's not his fault. His knees were made of glass and he's lost a yard of pace and a higher jump. And I do have faith in him and I really like him and I want to turn it around. But I also do understand the other side of the argument that he should be dropped. I think it's a weird one where you can understand both sides.
That was literally what I think I summed it up by going like, you can see both sides of the coin. One's strength is the other's weakness as well, which makes it harder. I think I settled with like, I'd stick with Calvert-Lewin for now for the Southampton game, but I would be bringing Beto on a lot earlier than he did. You've got to be giving Beto a few more minutes. And if Beto, say now we brought him on in like this, I don't know, 60th minute. If we brought him on at say now 60th and he scored a goal or two, I then would fall in line with the maybe starting him because he's on a streak then. And you can't, sometimes the old wives' tales and the myths of football, you can't ignore. So if he's on a streak, you've got to play him.
It is weird because I could see him starting against Southampton because of the fact that we're not going to have much of the ball. But I do think Calvert-Lewin's much more useful in those counter-attacks where the ball can get flung up to him by Pickford. I think Beto's better in the air, but I think it's weird. Calvert-Lewin controls it better in the air when he gets it, if that makes sense. The one credit I'll give Calvert-Lewin is he's still amazing at winning that aerial duel and bringing it down. He may not win the headers, but he is genuinely one of the best strikers in the league, I think, still at bringing it down from a goal kick or a cross. And then he's still amazing at that, and it's why I think why Sean Dyche is going to give him so much faith. But I can also understand why maybe he'd start a Beto against a Southampton team that are just going to pass, and not do anything with the ball, because Beto offers a bit more pace and a sense of now we can catch you. And with the quality of passing of McNeil and Dye recently, you can trust that McNeil's going to find one of those, curving through balls that he's been playing really well this season, and it's going to latch onto the top of Beto's foot, and he's going to probably sky it 4 times. But it's one of those things where it's a really interesting situation as well, because there's 2 young strikers who have promise, who are in the background of where if these 2 don't perform, there's a very much a chance someone like a Chimiti could steal a spot. Because again, Chimiti's someone who had a few impressive performances, didn't score. I don't think he didn't score towards the end of last season, didn't he? He didn't. I don't think so.
No, but he was. He was good. His first touch is very good.
Yeah, and I think someone like Broja, or I think Broja is a similar profile of striker to Calvert-Lewin, but unfortunately has a similar injury record as well. So it's it's one of those where it's a very interesting scenario, the Everton striker situation, because the one thing I'll give credit is I feel like unless they score Lukaku numbers, the fans are just never going to get on side.
Yeah, I mean, he said, hasn't he, he wants to become our all-time goal scorer, but I mean, Lukaku is just a different.
I mean, that's all the comment. Like, it took Calvert-Lewin 8 seasons to do this. It took Lukaku 3.5.
Yeah, but he's, I mean, he's a different player, isn't he?
Lukaku is a world-class striker on his day. I think a lot of people need to remember that Lukaku had no right to be playing for us in the first place. He should have. He should have been starting for Chelsea.
That was like Pete Lukaku. To be fair,
didn't he get what's he got? He's got 50 something, and he got. Did he not? Was it not 26 of those in one Premier League season or something mental like that? And the only reason he didn't win it was because Aguero scored 30.
I think so. Yeah, it was something. He's an incredible player for us back then. So I think that's a bit tough, and I don't think we're going to get another Lukaku in quite a while, to be honest.
No, unless we are preying on Chimiti being that good again. We are relying on, because I just think I think the way we're going is very much going to be signing established talent. So again, if we get in a striker like that, we'd have to hope we've got some freak 15-year-old in the academy right now that we don't know about.
Yeah, or make an absolute steal. Get an absolute steal, because there's plenty of good talent around that people don't want. I'd be watching Chelsea and seeing what some of the absolute holding of players that they have, the ones that are good enough but don't quite make it through. Because
I think that lad from Ipswich is definitely going to be maybe not 25, but 15 to 20 goal a season Prem striker. I think that Delap, I think it's not all been there, but again, you've got to look at Ipswich and then just look at the one against Villa, where he just sits Diego Carlos down, and then
City though. So we the best trick is to watch what the big teams don't want, because their quality is so high. It's how we got Lukaku, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's again, it's Ipswich did it smart by Delap had a few crappy loan spells. Probably were able to get him sold for the difference is, Delap has a decent half season at Hull. I think that's where he was last off. Hull or Stoke. And then Ipswich probably have to play 30 for him. He doesn't have a good loan spell. Ipswich, I think, paid less than 20 for him.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to be. Annoyingly, it is the Championship though, so I'm not going to say that they'd be doing the same here. But Ellis Simpson's leaving us has been a decent goal scorer, and Tom Cannon is having a really good season at Stoke.
I think with Sims, I'm not a Coventry fan, so I think I can I have not heard a good thing about Ellis. Apparently, it's one of those things where he will have the worst performance you've ever seen, and then he might get chippy on with a goal. But this season, he scored against Luton, nicked one against Watford. But from what I'm seeing here, which is from the end of August, he's barely averaging above a 6. Apparently, he played well against Luton, but I think Sims has found his level. He's a mid-table Championship striker. Cannon's a bit more of an interesting one. You can't score 4 goals in a game and be a bad striker. Yet they're all 4 of his goals this season. But I also I don't know if he's been starting every game for Stoke. But yeah, that game against Portsmouth, you've got to be a pretty good striker if you're banging 4 in the game.
I think he picked some up the other day as well, didn't he?
Got one against Southampton in the cup.
Yeah, I think he got one against them. But maybe there's a lad in the youth that's but in terms of moving forward, I think we've done players that could play better. We've done them. We've shouted out the players who played well in terms of Michael Keane and Dwight McNeil, Pickford, and Young. We currently sit 16th in the table, 9 points. We are 5 points from Ipswich, who are 18th. Moving forward, some really important games. You've just said then Southampton, West Ham, Brentford, and then it starts to get really tough because we have United, Liverpool, and Arsenal all
Man
within.
City as well, don't we?
Is that in later mid?
Yeah, is it not? Do we not see? We play Man City every year at Boxing Day. Yeah, literally Boxing Day, Man City. It's every season without fail. We play these on Boxing Day. It feels like, but yeah, it is. So we have
Chelsea
a decent run.
Well.
So we have Southampton, West Ham, Brentford, Man United, Wolves. Then it is in a row: Liverpool at Goodison, Arsenal away, Chelsea at Goodison, Man City away, and then it calms down a little bit in January. But it's probably 4 guaranteed losses, maybe sneak a draw in there and I think one of those games against one of those 4 teams, we are getting pumped. I hate to break it to someone. One of those teams is smacking 4 past us. I hate to break it to our fans. One of those teams is absolutely just having a field day against Tarkovsky, and even if Bramboy's playing. So it's one of those things where, if I'm going to be honest, so this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 game stretch until Liverpool, 9 points minimum.
Yeah, we need to separate the gap because that's a relentless one that could put us straight back down into the trouble.
We need to be beating Southampton, Brentford, and Wolves. Realistically,
we should really be beating Southampton anyway.
We should be pumping Southampton. Southampton are another team that are just awful. It's they're going to beat us now that we've said this, 100%. Because especially with all the stuff I'm seeing on Twitter, where it's a guaranteed 3 points. It's written in the stars. But I think it's one of those where, again, I'm not worried about relegation at all. If I'm going to be brutally honest, I think
no, I think it'll level out. But I'm thinking more in terms of the manager. It's going to be really hard, especially when the takeover might. It sounds. I think the only update we have had is that so far everything is going a-okay according to plan. I think that's the only update we've heard since the last one. Is that just there's no problems, which I'll take. But if they come in and say now around January, he could be on a 6-game loss. He's already the fan base is quite split on him anyway. I could really see the pressure.
What won't surprise me? What really won't surprise me at all? We lose to Southampton, we lose to West Ham, we draw against Brentford, lose to Man United, lose to Wolves. All of a sudden, Merseyside derby, up 2-0 win, 0-0 draw against. It's the most Everton thing ever to lose against the teams that realistically we should be competitive against, and then go against Man City and nick a 1-0 and be like, well, not Man City because they beat us every time, but like Chelsea and nick a 1-0 at Goodison and be like, well, hell, look at that. But
Chelsea's a possibility. I mean, I'm not. They're out of all of them. They're one of
I
the clubs I'm looking at with a little bit more of a
think
hope.
I think Chelsea are going to be the team that pump us. I think they're going to do it to us again.
Don't
I
know.
just think because I think our big major problem, is those central players with like Iwobi, for example, with real talent on the ball. Like we can deal with big
Yeah,
lump strikers. I've like for example, every time we've played against Haaland, I think he's got a couple against us, but I think we've always performed well. We've always managed to neutralise him quite well and get him out of the game. Players like Palmer, these midfield quality players, who can really drive with a ball. Bruno Fernandes always does us in whenever we play United. Players like that who get a lot of touches on the ball and can drive with it just constantly. People who will dribble at our defenders is basically what I'm talking about. And we're going to have to play against Madueke, Sancho, and Palmer, who are just constantly going to run at us. And I think it'd be Arsenal if we pick up a point against any team, because Arsenal play that similar style to football to us in a weird sense. Big man lump it on set pieces. So I can just see it being like, you get a set piece, you get a set piece, you get a set, and we nick a 0-0 because we can defend. Well, we can't defend set pieces
I
that
was
well
going to say we
anymore. But
can't defend set pieces. They're really. Last year they played the short corner, didn't they? And it really caught us out. They kept playing the short corner.
yeah, I hope there's more
United
common
as
sense.
well.
What that?
United as well is another one I'm looking at in that group, and like as long as we don't get hit by the new manager bounce, because
We're
apparently
getting hit with a new manager bounce, because I think United they're gonna give Van Nistelrooy Chelsea and the Europa League game, and then this Amarim's gonna come in, and I think the only problem is in a lot of yeah, I think it is going to be him anyway, but I think a lot of the Man United team fit his style already. So I think, unlike a lot of things, again, I'm not an expert. If you want to go, there's plenty of videos out there. I think there's a lot of Man United players who are just going to set right into that three at the back system quite easily. And I think, unfortunately, if it's as good as it looks at Sporting, where it's a free flowing, free at the back football, our grandad midfield and defenders who really like to clothesline people every now and again, it'll be a nightmare to deal with if this Amarim's as good as he's meant to be. Which, to be fair, seeing how they're performing in Europe as well, there's no reason to expect that he's not. But yeah, I think the big one, out of the big teams, it probably is Chelsea, because Arsenal's at the Emirates. I thought it was at Goodison. Yeah, it might have to be Chelsea, because I refused, even though we won the last one, I refused to ever have faith going into a Merseyside derby.
Yeah, I think Chelsea or United. I still think United. I'm still on the fence about the new fella, because I know they're going to play a free back, and I'm just it depends who's fit for United, but some of their defenders I just don't think are made for it in the middle. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what a high line looks like from them as well. But I think it'll be an interesting the next month we do. So like November's, we'll be leading into this tough run. It'll be very interesting to see where we are on Deitch right now. Just before we end, right now, where do you stand? Deitch in, Deitch out?
Deitch in, because there's no one else.
And we've got to pay him still quite a large fee.
Honestly, if a better manager became available to us, I don't care about it. It's the money I'm not bothered about. If the Friedkins are willing to pay it, it's just the replacement needs to be good. Like I'm sorry, I think Graham Potter's a decent manager, not mid-season. I wouldn't even mind him replacing Dyche, not mid-season. If we're going to bring Potter in, give him a full thingy, because I do think a lot of the players we have currently could fit that Potter style. I think, weirdly, say this is a Sean Dyche team, there's a lot of players who could fit that, like Brighton style of play that he had. I think it'd just be like, again, I just can't see a world where Abdoulaye Doucouré is playing that midfield role like they needed under Brighton. I think the poor guy'd explode. I think it's one of those things where it's like, I just think there's no one out there, and I think if we brought someone else in, it'd have to be someone who wouldn't need a big adjustment period, wouldn't need, because again, if you're going to sack someone mid-season, you need to, like, for example, United have sacked Ten Hag because they've probably had their eyes on Amarim for a while now.
Yeah, also like what's it called? Goals are different as well though. United have sacked him on the hope that they make the change now, they'll push to get where they want to be, which is European football. They can afford to. If we sack him now on the why are we sacking him to stay up? Because I personally think we stay up anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
Fighter managers in.
Yeah, we're in a position where anywhere above the relegation zone is a good finish for us. I don't think we're a relegation candidate team, but I do not care about the difference between finishing 16th and 12th. I don't care. And that's where realistically I think we're going to... Yeah, we get a bit more money if we finish 12th. Could not care less. I think it's a thing where Dyche is gone. I think no matter what, to be honest with you, even if we have one of those weird spells like we did last season where we just kept winning and winning and winning, I do think we could finish like 9th and he's gone no matter what.
And I think we'll shake hands. We'll go, thank you for the 3 years of keeping us up during some turbulent times. But I think the new owners might want Bramley more. It just, whether this is a good idea or not will only be judged next season. Well, but I think they want a new, fresh start.
Yeah. Well, I think as well is the advantage is that the players are there now. If you look at the start of last season, it wasn't there. Now there is a resurgent McNeil looking the best he's ever looked in his career. An Illiman and Dye, a Jared Bramflett who's really good with the ball at his feet. Yeah, and a Robenim who looks like after some development could be a real quality midfielder. It looks like there's the core there for a team that not could play like tiki-taka, ping football, but could probably play a more direct, nicer, quick counter-attacking style of football than Sean Dyche's big, lump it up for a bit of quality from an attacker. I don't think it's as black and white as that I've just made out there, but I think it's one of those where I do think at the end of the year there's going to be a much more exciting option or just a better option available than Sean Dyche, who is willing to join an Everton team that's moving into a brand new state-of-the-art stadium and is probably going to be given a decent amount of money to spend by the new owners.
Yeah, I will say Dwight McNeil though having the best bit of season of his life. I think he's down to the manager as well though. So
yeah, 100%. I do think it's a thing. I think it's a thing where he could easily recreate this production or even improve on it or get it with a different manager. I think it's the thing of where Sean Dyche knows his strengths, and I think what Dyche has done for McNeil in a positive way, and we've seen this with other managers, is he's gone to the next manager and being like, if he goes, this is what you need to do with him. It's clear where you get the best out of someone like a McNeil. And I think
he's always said that though, hasn't he? Like since he joined, he was like his goal is to leave Everton in a better place than he found it. He's always been quite candid about the fact he's not going to be our forever manager, which no one's going to be because people age. But he's made it very clear he is just a stepping stone, someone to stable the ship and then pass it on.
Yeah, and then he's going to go do the same thing for another club in the same situation. Again, I don't know. It's going to be weird because I don't know where it's going to be at the end of the season. Like, for example, I could see Eddie Howe getting sacked or leaving because there's rumours that the PIF are pulling funding in a lot of the things now. So, again, if Eddie Howe finishes 12th or something, not 12th, he's going to finish a lot higher than that. But, they're in FFP struggles. Guimaraes wants to go, or not wants to go. Guimaraes has to go. Isaac has to go. Are they then going to try, bring in a Mourinho to Newcastle to be like, look to the players, this is what we've got? And because I feel like eventually Eddie Howe to Everton, it's written in the cards. I do think we should have done it years ago when I first started coming on the channel and suggested it, and that's going to be my thing. I hold over people for the rest of the thing, but I think he's an example of someone where if that becomes available, it was nice knowing you, Sean. Cool. Bye-bye. For example, if Newcastle sack Eddie Howe at the end of the year, get Sean Dyche out immediately. Pack his bags, give him his money, because at the end of the day, right, for example, Eddie Howe, people can't go, Eddie Howe doesn't know how to do a relegation battle. Look what he did with that Newcastle team when he first went in. That Newcastle team stunk when he first went in. It was he was relying on Joe Willock for form and goals, and Callum Wilson was playing really well. But it's not like it was like now where it's Bruno Guimaraes. I think Bruno might have joined that January or that summer. But again, that was like it was like, for example, when we had Onana, it was that one bit of shining light in a sense. But I think it's with Dyche. I think he's done a good enough job at getting. We're in a much more stable position now, which is again, like you said, what he's done his job. At the end of the day, he's done exactly what we needed him to do, and I think it just depends on who becomes available. But I don't think, for example, an Eddie Howe's going to become available, or someone where it's a big enough upgrade to pay Dyche the millions of pounds we have to pay him. So I think it's one of those where it's going to be an end of the season, like you said, shake hands, thank you for your work for the club, but it's time for a new era now.
Yeah, he'd have to really, really do well, and he'd have to have a really, really, really good pitch to keep it, I think. But I don't know about the Eddie Howe, just because I think obviously the Everton links are there, and if it was the previous owners, I'd have 100% agreed that he's gonna be interviewed. This isn't me saying he deserves it or doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying with the new owners, I really just don't know what their mentality is, because you look at Roma and they had Mourinho, which was a coup for Roma, but Mourinho needed a career revival as well, which he got, and now he's at Fenerbahce, which I think is a bit odd. Personally, I think that's a bit of a
I just think
downgrade.
that's because there was no other job available for him. I think,
Yeah,
for example, if which of the big teams could really? I don't know. If one of the big teams sacked their manager, that wasn't United or Tottenham. If Chelsea would have sacked Maresca and offered Mourinho the job, Mourinho would have sprinted back. I think it's or like
yeah,
or if Real Madrid sacked Carlo, it wouldn't surprise. Which got rumored after the pumping from Barca. It wouldn't surprise me if they thought, well, it worked with Carlo. Let's get another old manager in. Again,
yeah,
it's one of those where I think he's only in Turkey because big pay packet. They've given him a decent amount of money, and they've actually got a good squad for Fenerbahce.
yeah.
But
They
it's
have,
one of those.
and
But
they've
it's
done
one of
well.
those where if a job comes knocking, for example, if Newcastle came knocking, he's off.
Yeah, yeah. But in terms of like, I don't know how the Fredinkins think, because then they replaced him with De Rossi, which I feel like was very much heart ruling your head decision making there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's Enright-esque
yeah.
type of move. That is.
Yeah,
That's
because
like,
the only thing I can think of I feel like he was the manager of like Spa or something. I think they've got like a light blue badge, and but again, in my mind, it's the equivalent of us giving Leighton Baines the job if we sack Dyche and just going,
worse.
good
I've got
luck,
it being
buddy.
Wayne Rooney. I've got it being it'd be like giving Rooney it.
Yeah, it literally would be like, actually, no, yeah, that's perfect. It'd be like giving Rooney the job. But
Yeah,
I think it's one of those where I do think Eddie Howe's realistic because I think he's going to have to. He's not going to take a step up from Newcastle. The England job's not available, and he's shown he can be the leader of a rebuilding project. The only reason Newcastle aren't still competing for the Champions League consistently now and are in the situation Villa are in is because they've been stiffed by FFP. He's again, I think he's one of the better managers in the Premier League. To be honest, I think if that's available, I wouldn't care if he was a diehard Liverpool fan and had tweets saying he hopes the club got liquidated from 2 weeks ago. If he's available, and he's that good of a manager, which I do think Eddie Howe is, for where we are too. I think it's very important that this isn't the Everton team that was seventh and eighth and ninth and had money to spend and could be ambitious. This is an Everton team coming off Rafa Benitez, Frank Lampard, and Sean Dyche. Unfortunately, we are in the exact same position as teams like Nottingham Forest, Wolves, Brentford. We are not with Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Figure, which is probably where we should be, but we are a bottom dweller in a sense in the Premier League, or in that too good to go down, too crap to really do anything in the league part of the table. So unless the Friedkins are really going to spend some money in the summer, I think it's going to be like maybe a Howe if he gets sacked, a Potter, someone in that, a Southgate possibly even, someone in that weird brand, unless they can get in some really good foreign coach who may want that Premier League pay packet.
I'd like it to not be somebody that's like typical Everton of the past, where we just go for a Premier League name that's known and it just not work out, sort of like, or flavour of the month Premier Leagues, because not the Martinez was, but Marco Silva had a very quick rise up
Yeah,
to us. He
yeah,
was like whole Watford us bang very
yeah.
quickly.
Marco Silva was very much a developing manager, and has now developed into the manager we thought he could have been when we gave him the job. But again, needed more time for when we gave him the job to get to that stage. He needed his Fulham job where he could have his little project where he didn't have anything to worry about, compared to us where he was given a load of money to spend. Now he's proven he can do it at Fulham, and Fulham have rewarded him with a load of money to spend. So I think it's one of those where I'd take Marco Silva back if we could in a heartbeat. I think he's the next on the conveyor belt. Him or the Brentford manager Frank are going to be the next one of these lot to get. Are going to be the next one to get a top 6 job. I can easily see Spurs finishing 7th, sacking Ange and getting Silva
in. Yeah, I think he is probably destined another shot at the big time. I just, I mean, we'll call it there, but I think the last thing with the is that like next season's a new era. We won't have. I hope we don't have super agents, too many chefs spoiling the broth. So whatever happens, the manager will get a free hit at it, along with the director of football, whoever that may be. I don't know if it still will be Farewell or. But it's hard to predict, isn't it, till we see the Fredinkin era come in.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Because especially, like you said, with these super agents, to the last point, the only good one in the history of football I can think of is the lad at Wolves.
Yeah, Menendez, is it the one who was right? Ronaldo.
Yeah, I feel like he had a stake in the club as an owner.
Yeah,
that's the only reason he pulled so many strings.
And even I think that's a bit dodgy. But
100%.
It's not like Mashiri though, where it's like it was Mashiri, Brands, and I forgot his name now. Kia.
Fucking Kia. Yeah. I'm sorry if that sounds like I'm thinking about. I
can't pronounce his surname, so I'm just gonna call him
it's
Kia.
It's a lot of letters, but yeah. Well, yeah. It was like Mashiri, Kia, and then Marcel Brands like at the back of the room with his hands like that. Just sat, can I do my job, please? Because now we know the poor bloke was not being let to do his job, and he actually scouted some really good players, and just the club went, no, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say the amount of players now that we see where it's like they were looked at, and it's like, But I think that is where we'll end it though for this month, and then we'll be back next month with hopefully a few more wins, a couple of draws, and we'll be very optimistic for the December fixtures. But thank you for joining me, Cal. It's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
Don't forget, guys, to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and comment down below your thoughts. We look forward to reading them. See you soon.